buddy of mine bought this 2014 Chevy Camaro, and I'm pretty sure this is one of those, what do they call it? Takeover cars, and here it is. So the story we were given is this thing used to be raced down in New Mexico, and if you just take a peek at this thing, it's got curb rash, it had stickers all over the thing, it used to have a spoiler here, and that's been taken off since. It's got some custom exhaust, which I don't know what I think about that. Of course, the little chrome stuff is faded. Oh, there's one sticker right here, beautiful skull, and some more curb rash going on. Look at the lip on these, and these are actually the wrong size tires on this thing. Let's just see here. 275s in the rear, 275 40/20s, and we have, oh yeah, 245 35/20s. So wrong size tires, which probably would give us the wrong speed for sure. But anyways, when this car would lose, I guess apparently in races in New Mexico, they used to shoot the cars with BB guns. Does that sound like a thing you guys do at these takeovers? I'm unsure about this, but check these BB holes out. So they shot it with a BB gun here, into the window. There's a bunch of BB holes here. There's one through the fender actually on that. That must have been a good high-powered one. So yeah, they looks like they rolled the fenders too. I don't know if they used a pipe or a baseball bat or something. It kind of a sad deal. This probably was a really nice car at one point, and a bunch of people just ruined it. Oh yeah, another couple of BB holes here. Another one right through the fender there. So again, it needs some help. And the reason why it's here today is because the slave cylinder has failed, and presumably because he was probably beaten on the thing a little too rough. There was a slave cylinder with the vehicle. The guy said he replaced the clutch once. Came with another slave cylinder. Well, you're not going to be able to tell from the light, but there's actually brake fluid right there. And that's leaking from the slave cylinder on the transmission side. Is they put the slave cylinder integral in the bell housing, so we have to take the transmission out to do the job, which is going to be fun. Let's get this car up in the air and start wrenching on it. You know, the funny thing about this whole deal is I sold the shop that I used to have, and now I'm reverting back to the old roots, working on the ground. Alright, now that I got the car up in the air, now let's peek under, and I'll show you that leak that I'm talking about with the slave. There's a drip hanging off of it right here, and the slave cylinder's up inside the bell housing of the transmission. So, all this will have to be removed, and it looks like we got to take the exhaust down, and the heat shield right here, that'll come down so we can get access to the drive shaft, and all this stuff has to be taken apart to get to it. Alright, so I think I'm going to start inside the car first, because there's some pieces up there for the shifter and stuff that's going to have to be removed first, and then we'll get on to the dirty stuff. So we're going to remove this panel right here, and this is going to give us access to take this boot off. I'll take the shifter off, and we'll move on. So the shifter comes off like so. This panel just pops off like so. I think what I'm going to do is just drape that to the side like that. And then there's a couple of screws. 4 screws hold this on. And then there's 4 10mm bolts that hold the little bellow. Alright, just like so. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 10mm bolts. So you take that off, and we'll be able to get this thing removed here. Alright, so with those removed, now that gives us access to keep this thing dropped down. So once we remove it, this will be able to fall down with it. So on to the dirty part. Alright, so the next step is to remove this exhaust system they have on here. And I'm going to take it off here and here. It looks like just factory clamps. And it'll basically disassemble this whole thing. And then there's a plate back here you can kind of see. We'll take that plate down, and then there's a couple hangers in the back, and we'll remove this exhaust system, get it out of here, take this heat shield down, and once we get that heat shield out of here, we can access the drive shaft. I'm going to take these clamps down, get this exhaust out of here. Whoa. Alright, so now I'm on the back side of the car. You can see these little rubber isolators that hold the exhaust in. There's two right here, and actually it looks like a couple for the mufflers are up inside of the bumper. I'll show you them. So right there, there's another isolator. It's pretty dark, but there's one on each side. One right there too. I got this handy dandy tool that's going to save me from a world of frustration. So I'll get these taken out like so. And two on the back and just like that, the exhaust is out. Oh my god. Alright, so now I had the exhaust system removed. As you can see, this is the whole exhaust system from the X-pipe back. It's always good to see these telltale signs like this, right? What that is axle grease. Only CB axle boot that is probably torn or has been leaking a little bit. Not uncommon to see that happen, but again, pipe's removed. And if we go underneath the car, you can see this axle. Look at this thing. It definitely has an axle replaced on the right side. But look at the left side. And then check that out. Grease there. So it's definitely flinging it. It's up all over the place. It's leaking from this boot. And this side has been replaced. As you can see, this is a newer axle. And he said he kept breaking these right side axles apparently, so I'm not sure what the story is going to be there, but as you can see, we got access to the drive shaft now. Still got to take that panel down and get the drive shaft out. So that's what we're working on next. All this is coming down. Great. The zip tie is holding it on. Yeah, you can always tell somebody's craftsmanship when they can't use the actual nuts that hold this thing on. They're even still there. They just must have lost the nuts and put ties on them. So let me cut those zip ties, show you how easy this is. Okay, so we got these Torx bolts, it looks like, here for the isolators, and then the carrier. Actually, this all looks pretty healthy, so. Alright, so a T60 Torx. It looks like 18mm nuts on the back. Alright, so now I got all the bolts removed, as you can see. Like so. Same on this front side, like so. So now we'll remove the carrier, and I'll have to get a pry bar probably and pop those loose. And that's what I'm going to do now. Alright, there we have it. The drive shaft, it's a two-piece. This is your slip yoke right here. And that's the carrier bearing. Obviously this has got a little tag on it, it says indication towards the front. But there you have it. Drive shaft is out. You can see, drive shaft is out. There's the diff. So we just got to take this piece down. This is your cross member for the transmission, but we have a couple of coolers here. So these little bolts right there. And then there's a couple of sensors obviously here and on the side. So we're gonna get the electrical stuff out, get this dropped down, and then I'll be able to reach all those bell housing bolts to the top. That's my hope. Of course, more frickin' zip ties. Who's that? There we go. I don't know why I did that. It had a little vacuum or something on it. That's kind of interesting. Yeah. Anyways, alright, cooler line's out. I might as well just get the slave cylinder line disconnected too. Alright. So the fun part is we get to remove these bolts. 4 of them. I got the harnesses off, all that stuff off. And we got 4 bolts for the crossmember for the transmission so we can lower it down and get access to the bell housing bolts on top. Okay, let the jack down a little bit. So now we can actually kind of see, if I can show you a little bit, if it'll focus in there. There's a bolt up there you can't get to otherwise. So all those got to come out. 1, 2, 3. Get that out next, and this thing can be pulled back.
Hey,
Got
there
her?
we go. Yep.
Okay, come back here. Ready? Okay.
There we go.
Can we rest? Can we get the jack under here actually?
Yeah, there we go.
There. Okay, well, hold on a second. We might not need to go back too far because I can probably squeeze under here down to get the sleeve. Well, there she is. Right like that, boys. Here's your slave. Leaking away. Oh, wow, it blew apart. Interesting. Alright, so now we got this bad boy down. I took the 2 bolts out of this slave cylinder and popped the line out. It's pretty simple there. And this is exactly what failed, so check this thing out. Get this thing down. So this is the slave cylinder, and this thing's leaking. But as you can see, the bearing portion of this thing completely exploded. And there's shrapnel inside this boot and everything. Of course, the brake fluid's out of it. Yeah, look at this piece. There's pieces of stuff in here. Just destroyed. So thankfully, we got this brand spanking new one. Being this is a street rodder, the clutch disc has been replaced with a pucked disc. So it should be a little bit more upgraded, at least, in theory, with the automotive performance world. So I will get this new one put up in here and get that bolted up, cleaned up here, and start the journey back. All right, I didn't capture this part on video, but you can see the pressure plate and the flywheel here, and there's actually an air gap between the pressure plate and the flywheel because the bolts weren't tight and one was actually missing. So this is most likely what wrecked the throwout bearing on the slave cylinder. So if you're doing jobs like this, make sure you tighten up the bolts. Okay, push down. Down. Ooh, and there's some fluid. Okay, again. Tighten up the cross member here. These clips got to be pushed in like so. And then we got a bolt here and a bolt here. I'll tighten these 4 bolts up right here like so. Alright, shift your boot goes back on. Okay, that just goes up and then in. Push, push, push. Okay.
There we go.
Alright, moment of truth. In first gear, letting the clutch out. And would you look at that? We're back in business, boys and girls, on the street rodder. Alright, here we go. First to second, shift is smooth. Oh, that makes me very happy. Alright, so there you have it, boys and girls. A slave cylinder replacement. And come to find out, the pressure plate was actually loose from the last morons that worked on this thing. So, always do the job right. If you're taking a bolt out, put a bolt back in, please. I'm gonna go rip on this thing. Thanks for watching, boys and girls.